Right. Hello, everyone. This is the pre-workshop presentation. Before we begin with the workshop, I noticed that many of you are already introducing yourself. For others, kindly introduce yourself in the chat window, where you're from, what do you do, and what you are expecting from this session. Jai Hind, everyone. Yes, Jai Hind. All right, so learning and exposure for teachers and educators have been the inspiration behind Firki workshops. You can go through the different workshops, webinars, learning paths conducted on the portal. The link to the same will be posted in the chat window soon. We believe that your time is valuable and we want to acknowledge your presence in this session. And we will also be providing our participants with the certificate of attendance. This is made available to participants who attend the entire session. We will share more details on how to fill out the feedback form and access the certificate towards the end of the workshop. You can join a Firki webinar or a workshop on two platforms, Zoom and YouTube. The YouTube live link will be posted shortly in the chat window. Now, I will take you through a few features on Zoom that you can use to have an engaging and productive session. So this is the mic button. You can click this to keep yourself muted, unmute only if the speaker asks you to. This is the video button. You can switch on and off your video with. You can share your questions and thoughts in the chat window. I, Anu, Tasneem, the entire Firki team will be here to curate your questions and share them with our speaker. After the workshop, we would encourage you to talk to people around you about what you learned today. We remember best when we share our learning with others and therefore practice learning from the workshop in your work. Then access the certificate and resources on www.firki.co or the Firki app. Then attend our next Firki workshop, webinar, and sign up on www.firki.co to get updates. Now, this brings us to the end of the presentation. Let us begin the workshop now. So, hello everyone, once again, we are delighted to have you join us for today's episode titled Inner Work of the Coach in partnership with Shobhali Thapa. I am your host, Deepika. I work at Firki and I will be your guide for this workshop to help you navigate through it. The importance of taking care of well-being for coaches is often highlighted in various professional coaching standards and ethical guidelines. One of the prominent policies that emphasize this is the International Coach Federation, that is ICF Code of Ethics. The ICF Code of Ethics describes the ICF core values, ethical principles, and ethical standards of behavior of all ICF professionals. Now, ICF implemented the current version of the code in January 2020, and this code highlights several key points that relate to the well-being of coaches. Please take a minute to read these on the screen right now. And thus, it highlights that it is the responsibility of the coaches to be self-aware towards taking care of their physical and mental well-being, being first from like coaching others, right? And as we move to the workshop, I have a few requests for our participants as well. So we request you to keep your cameras on for effective interaction. We request you to avoid disturbance, to keep your mics off unless speakers ask you to unmute. Use the chat window to ask a question or raise hand to say something. Participate enthusiastically, take notes actively. Also, very importantly, we request you to keep this as a non-judgmental space by respecting each other's views and experiences. So for example, when I share that as a coach, I sometimes struggle with maintaining a work-life balance. I am doing so because I consider this as a safe space. Similarly, you should feel free to share your experiences and respect one another. By doing so, we can create and uphold a more safe space for each and every one of us. And now we come to the introduction of our speaker today, Shobhali Thapa. And in our guide, Shobhali works at the nexus of coaching, therapeutic modalities, and spirituality. A psychology honors graduate from Delhi University, a trained life and professional coach from Coach for Life, a certified yoga teacher in the Sivanand lineage, and a diploma with ongoing masters in Nalanda Buddhist philosophy and psychology from Tibet House. She has also trained in many different therapeutic modalities. Shobhali believes our mental and emotional struggles to be a skill gap, emotional, relational, and life skills, and that everyone can learn these skills and lead a happy, meaningful, and fulfilling life. Thank you so much. We hope you have an interesting workshop. Over to our speaker now.
Thank you so much, Deepika. Thank you everybody for joining in. I am gonna straight take us to our workshop for the day. Okay. Give me just a moment to start the screen share. You might have to allow me sharing screen, Deepika, Anu, this name.
Can you try? No?
Yep. Right. Can you see my screen? Yes, no. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're looking at our inner world as coaches and sort of trying to figure out, okay, how as coaches do we take care of our emotional, mental, relational well-being? Yeah. Now, before I start with this, with my, I guess, spiel in a way, here's my assumption. Here's my core assumption, preamble to this workshop, if you will, that I'm assuming you're here as a coach, as somebody who wants to enable your coachee, your mentee, the person that you're working with, to find their best selves in whatever they do. So, for example, if you're a teacher coach, my hope is that you want to enable them to be their best teacher coach. Notice how I didn't say the best teacher coach or your best version of the teacher coach, but their best version of how and what it is to be a teacher. Yeah. At the same time, you probably, if you've been working as a coach for a while, you probably already know this. You can take the other only as deep within to become their best self as you've gone within yourself. Not an inch more, not an inch less. Yeah. Yes, of course, at a certain point, the other has to take a step. But once the other has taken the step, it depends on what depths you've reached within. Also, at the same time, I am very well aware that often it is easy to forget to do our own deeper inner work, to be mindful of the fact that we need to have skills, knowledge, practices that allow us to continually learn, heal, grow, so that we can show up as our best selves, starting with ourselves, so for us, then for the other, and for the world at large. And I want to take a moment here and check in with all of you. You can sort of put in the chat a thumbs up if you think you align with this, a thumbs down if you don't align, and a heart if you feel, yeah, I align somewhat, I don't fully align. Yeah, that would be great to see in the chats. Okay, so that's a lot of thumbs up. I'm just going to wait a few seconds to see if there's anything else, anyone in any other space, and that's perfectly fine, right? If you feel like I'm not sure if I align with this, or I align with it somewhat, not fully, that's also perfectly fine. Everything, every space is welcome. All right, so that's quite a bit of thumbs ups. I'm gonna then move on with our workshop, and please feel free at any point in time to bring in whatever. What was my heart for? My heart was for, if you feel you somewhat align with what I said, with what the screen, the thing that you see on the screen, you somewhat align with it, but don't fully align with it. That's what the heart was for. Yeah. Okay. So at any point in the time during the workshop, I would invite you, welcome you in to keep putting in your questions as and when they come. And also at the same time, be present with what's happening. Most of your questions we'll take up at the end of the session. Some questions maybe the hosts here will decide if some question is actually relevant to exactly where we're at in the workshop, then they'll bring it in. Otherwise, all the questions will be taken at the end. However, I do invite you to bring in your questions, keep putting it in the chat, because human mind is such that then things seem to go here and there. Yeah. All right. So here's what I'm hoping to explore with you all today: our own inner worlds as people, as coaches, how this work of coaching is actually the perfect fertile ground for our own deep inner work, what we can do and how we can do it, nurture, nourish, cultivate the right kind of inner world. And we'll talk about what this right kind of inner world is. How do we bring our best selves to our coaches and, in fact, to the world at large, right? To any interaction, to any space or place that you go to, how do you bring your best self as much as possible? If not all the time, almost all the time, if not almost all the time, half the time, if not half the time, some of the time, the best that I can do in this given moment. Yeah, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Now, before I get into these four pieces, what we did before I put this workshop together was we asked some of you these four questions. What are the challenges that you face with coaching? What are the challenges that you face with your own emotional mental health? What is it that you actively do for your emotional mental health? And then what kind of support would you want that would be helpful for you? So these are the four questions that we asked. And I've sort of summarized each of the four. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to one by one show you the responses, the summarized responses that we had for each of these. And as we go one by one in the slides, what I would request you to do is read the slide. And then if you think there is something that is true for you that's not on the slide, add it in. Yeah. Here's what they said when they were asked, what are the challenges that you face with coaching? A big chunk was the other person's mindset. Yeah? So your coaches, your student, whoever the stakeholder is, their mindset. Do they want to learn? Are they reflective? Are they listening to you? What is their attitude? Do I need to continually keep motivating them? Is there internal motivation? How aligned are they with the organization vision, mission? And what is the level of implementation post debriefs? Then the second chunk was, how do I build a consistent, productive, mutual, respectful relationship with my coachee? What do I do when I feel drained post conversations? How do I sort of keep finding my locus of control? How do I bring everybody together on the same page? A very, very, very interesting one. And I would say very brilliant for the person who brought it. How do I work on admitting things that I don't know, or spaces and times where I went wrong? And then one of the challenges was time. And so I would wait for a moment to see if there are any other things that you would bring in to the challenges with coaching. Misunderstanding. AKA, yes, sorry, yes, AKA means also known as, my bad. That's called acronym dropping. Do share challenges that I personally face with coaching. Very similar. Oh, okay, you've asked others. Okay. Learning attitude, yeah. Difference in experience, growth mindset, both ways, communication gap, difference in opinion. Adaptability. Transferring learning accountability. Solution-oriented mindset of the coachee. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of pieces that I'm seeing are in and around mindset and or sort of soft skills. Hmm. Grabbing attention, check for understanding. Yeah. Some yes sayers too. Hmm. Yeah, so if everybody around the coach is like, no, 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 can't happen, not a great environment and space to thrive as a coach. Yeah. Language barrier. Yeah. Yeah. Cooperation. So relationships, working towards building a sense of possibility. Yeah. So again, the mindset piece, biases, mindset. Huh? So a lot of mindset, relationships, softer skills, communication, defensiveness, and ability to receive. Okay, I'm gonna now move on to the next slide. That's about what are the challenges that you face in your own inner work, your emotional, mental well-being to handle that. And here are some of the responses. Here are what the responses said: no time, or no time for myself, or too long a to-do list, or the social life, or others or family members make fun of it. I feel tired when I do it. I don't want to speak to anybody. There is no intrinsic motivation. I know there is intrinsic resistance. I'm not mindful enough. I don't have enough commitment to myself. I feel lazy. I'm emotionally weak. I can't control emotions at times. Doing this work brings up stress. It brings up sad and boring memories and my own biases. Yeah. So these were a few of the challenges. What do you think are yours? In balancing time, stress, negative thoughts. Hard relate with all. Yeah. Identifying the stakeholders. I'm wondering if this is from the last slide. Need. No freedom of thought and no appreciation. That's a challenge with your in your taking care of your emotional, mental, and mental well-being. Emotional and mental well-being. Sometimes we get demotivated with the outcomes. Yep. Hard conversations. Yeah. Yeah. Hard, difficult conversations can be tough. Yeah. Challenges with volatility of your volatility, the other person's volatility. When work outcome is good, it's the team. When not good, the leader is targeted. Yep. Some spaces that happens. Can't manage my time, negative thoughts, overlooking our own growth. Okay, great. Okay. Now, if any of you were to go back and read across these two slides, what you're going to see is that challenges that I face with coaching and challenges that I face in my own work are similar. Mindset issues, softer skills, relationship pieces. I'm going to go to the next slide. And that's just sort of a food for thought for you. That the challenges that I face with coaching and the challenges that I face with my own work, inner work, emotional, mental well-being work are sort of similarly based around relationships, around softer skills, communication aspects, and mindset. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see a few. Yes. Yes, I agreed. All right. Now here's a third question that we asked them. What do you do to cater to your mental emotional needs? Here are things people said. They said, and I tried to put it in some sort of buckets. So they said, meditate, walks, yoga. They said, I sit alone with my thoughts, self-analysis, reflection. Then they said, read, coloring, listening to music. Then they said, shopping, do something I like, me time, went out, talked to friends. And then there was a bucket of people who said, well, I don't really do anything much, or I've not thought about it. Yeah. What do you do to cater to your mental, emotional well-being? Diary writing, go for a run. Yeah. So something physical, something putting out, whatever is in journaling, walking, playing with my dog. Yeah. Again, a relationship, bringing in a relationship with the dog, exercising, breathing, temple connection, deeper, higher connection, improve my listening skills, relax and sleep, order from Swiggy. So phone, it's a sort of a I'm just going to bring in a little bit of subtle and meta here. So food, we might think, oh, that's my I mean, yes, it is a coping mechanism, but what is food basically doing when I have these anxious, nervous energies? There's a lot of air element that's like bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. And then food is earth element that would settle things down. That's why our being does that. That's why our being binges on food, because the being intuitively knows what element will do what. Yeah. And so it takes in food, earth element, settle down. Okay. I'm going to come back to the chat. Music, relaxation and sleep, spending time with family. Yeah. Long drive by yourself, motivational videos, sit alone, reflect. Music, reading, sit alone, music, food, expressing feelings, poetry writing. Yeah. So there's a lot of what I'm seeing is expression, some form of expression, either with friend or journal or poetry, or even if you were to say, let's say, dance, listen to music, there's a particular kind of music that you want to listen to. So either you're expressing actively or you're expressing passively through your choice of music. Yeah, but there is some form of expression, or there is some form of physical outlet, so a run or a walk, or there is some form of relational connection, whether it's with your dog or your family or temple, whatever you believe is sort of a higher universal power being, whatever your that belief system is. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it seems blocking out negative people has proven to be therapeutic. Yeah. Yeah. And that's basically used, again, that's a form of expression, right? You're expressing yourself and saying, hey, here are my boundaries. Yeah. The form of self-expression. Okay. Let's go to the last question. What is the support that you need for your mental, emotional health, well-being? Here's what they said. They said some guidance on daily routine to follow, how to cope with stress, simple techniques, tips related to health, fat loss, sleep deprivation, how to let go of the emotions as it stays with me when I empathize with someone, ways to manage our mental well-being while doing day-to-day tasks, how to overcome my weakness and keep me calm, how to check paperwork. I'm poor at maintaining records. Now here I'm going to specify, this session will not tell you how to check paperwork. Okay, that's a technical piece. But the way I see the world is that when you figure out how to sort of ground and calm, clarity emerges, and then you figure out the technical piece. Constructive feedback, stress management, tips to manage support, tips to manage how to support and listen, and how to create a pure, peaceful environment. All right. Now, is there anything that's not covered in this list that you would want in terms of support for your mental, emotional well-being? This will be helpful for me right now to just get a pulse of where you're at, and also maybe for the Firki team to take note of to what to maybe bring in future for this Firki community. Yeah. Mental health professionals, supportive friends, stress management, flexible schedule. Is this what you're saying you'd need in terms of support? Okay, setting agreement, tackling chemical imbalances. How do you tackle chemical imbalances? I'm assuming you're meaning chemical imbalances in the body, so hormones. No thought challenge. Oh, if there is no thought challenge, that's going to be helpful. Is that what you're saying? Listening, if I could learn how to listen better, ways to manage mental health, mental stability, acceptance. How do I build in acceptance? Okay. How do I build in stability? Yeah. What else? Just wait for a few more seconds. Use circle of control. Okay. So the work-life balance. Just to sort of clarify the question is more about what support would you need? Okay. So work-life balance, different practices. What are the different practices for self-reflection? Lower self-expectations. We all need to self-help ourselves. Yeah. Need appreciation for the work we do. That's a beautiful thought, lower expectations. Then hopefully towards the end of the session, you'll see me or you'll hear not exactly what you're saying, but in lines with what you're saying. Need appreciation. Okay, so appreciation is going to help you, is going to be that support that you need. Yeah. All right. So what I'm seeing here is how to compartmentalize my life, personal, work life, motivation. What I'm seeing here is almost like a split between internal and external. Like there are certain things that from what I'm hearing, there are certain things, or what I'm reading in the chat, there are certain things you want to do in you. You want to know how to have a stable mind. You want to know how to sort of be able to deal with stress. You want to know how to manage stuff, create work-life balance. All of that is internal. And then there are things you're saying are externally driven, and you want from the external environment some form of appreciation, not having some flexibility in schedule, not being too pushed for time, things like that. Yeah. So an internal, there's almost a split, an internal split and an external split in terms of the support needed. Right. Today, our focus is going to be mostly on the internal piece. External piece, I can start asking for once I have clarity on what it is that I need. Because most of the times we are not truly aware of what I'm needing. I think I want something and I keep asking for it, and or I don't ask for it and I'm passively aggressive about it in different ways and forms. But even if I were to get what I'm wanting, it is not going to satisfy me because I don't yet know what my deeper need is. And so my hope is that we're able to actually dive in and explore my needs so I can stand in my truth with ease, comfort, and ask for my need to be met. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna now stop this chat for a moment at my end. You all also mind space wise can move on now from these slides. And we look at how to explore these four pieces, beginning with the first one, our inner worlds. Yeah. Our inner worlds, before coming to coaches, let's look at what is this? What are our inner worlds as people? Every single human has these core human needs: safety, belonging, meaning. Some of you, too many of you, might be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, right? The five needs pyramid, starting with physiological needs, psychological needs, belonging needs, self-esteem needs, and then self-actualization needs. Now, Maslow's hierarchy, or this pyramid of needs, was evolved from various other models that followed before. However, once you study these models, once you study the human mind deeper, you will realize and come to a similar understanding. You may use different words for it, that at the core of humans are these three needs. I want to be safe. I want to feel safe and secure. I want to feel like I belong, that I'm loved, that I'm cared for. I want to feel that I matter, that I am meaningful, that the work that I do has an impact, has meaning, that others see and appreciate my work. Thus, also somebody wrote in the chat, people to appreciate my work. Yeah. So meaning is an important part, important core need of our human needs. However, while Maslow put a hierarchy to it, saying you first meet this need, then meet that need, then meet, it's not that simple. We humans are magnificent beings. Now, a skeptic might say humans are also terrible creatures, and yes, any being that's magnificent has those two choices, right? Magnificence would then also bring in power. Like there is so much power that the human mind, that the human being has. And so we are not complicated beings. Because we don't understand all of this, it seems like we are complicated, or our mind is complicated, or the other person or the world is complicated. But actually, we are sophisticatedly simple beings. In other words, we are complex beings. And so it's not as easy as saying, okay, first this, second this, third this. All of this goes hand in hand. How and why? Let's look at that. When I say safety, it is not just roti, kapda, makan. It is not just food, clothing, and shelter. Yeah. Yes, for somebody who does not have access to these three things, just the bare physiological safety, it's a very different conversation. That's not the conversation we're having today. Because I'm going to go ahead and assume everybody who's listening to me right now, those three basic needs are not under threat for you. Yeah? Which is roti kapda makan, that you're getting food enough for survival, enough for sustenance, that you have at least one pair of clothing to sort of shelter you, keep you warm, keep you cool, whatever is needed, and that you have a roof over your head. Everybody who's here with me today has that met. Yeah. So once that is met, ideally, according to Maslow's thing, you should now feel secure, and or you should now go to psychological security. Yeah. Where is psychological security based? It's based in relationships. It's based in the second need of belonging. How, as a child, did I grow up relating to my parents? What form of attachment, relationship, bonds, patterns, blueprints did I form? Based on how the adult at that point in time related to me, I formed a mental schema of who I am and how I should be to be able to have these needs met. And now, if there are holes in that space, no matter what amount of physical safety you have, you can have 10 houses, 10 cars, whatever amount of food, there will still be this constant sense of, I need more, I'm not okay, I'm not safe, I'm not secure, there needs to be more. Yeah. And then it's not just this psychological attachment of belonging. It is also, which is where, what do others think of me? Almost everybody, I don't know a single person who is able to be completely oblivious of what people think of them. Yes, a skill that people build, there are healthy and unhealthy ways of building it, is despite that, being able to stand in your truth. That's a skill that people can build, but everybody does think about what others think of me, which is third need of meaning. I matter. Yeah. So you'll see safety is intertwined with belonging and meaning. Similarly, belonging. Yes, I need to feel love, I need to feel cared for, I need to feel like I belong, and I also need to feel like this one other helps me feel safe, helps me feel secure. And I also want that in the larger society, I feel safe and secure. That when I voice my opinion, I'm not shut down. That when I want to stand up and say, hey, I'm here, people see me for who I am. So again, the need for belonging intertwined with the other two. Similarly, the need for meaning. I need to feel I matter. I need to feel I matter to this other person, whether it's your romantic partner or your parent or your child or your coachee. Thus comes the whole idea of respect. Respect isn't so much about respect the way people usually see it. Respect is about, do you think I matter? Do you think I'm important? And important, again, not in the egoistical sense, but important like, do you consider me? Do you consider me as somebody who makes a difference, who is important, who brings something to the table? Yeah. So I matter by myself, it's important for me. It's important that the other person that I'm in current relation with in this moment thinks I matter. And that now this will depend on, what you're bringing in. So this others can be, does the world see that I matter? Or does my entire family see that I matter? Or do my friends, my colleagues, there is a group of others that sees that I matter, which again entwines with belonging, entwines with safety. So you see, humans are complex beings, which does not mean we are complicated. We are just sophisticatedly simple. And unless we understand the deeper nuances of our own being, things will seem complicated. Here, I want to bring in a point. You may have noticed, on average, the coach and the coachee, not in general in life, but just in this relationship of the coach and the coachee, more often than not, the coach seems to be more sort of grounded, more in their element of being able to see, or being able to sort of support, or being able to guide, or being able to hold a space as if these three needs are better met for the coach than for the coachee. Generally, usually speaking, not every time. Why does this happen? It happens because there are certain things that coaches, in their domain at least, have figured out in terms of how to view the world that they are in. So if you're a teacher coach, how do you view teaching? There is a deeper mindset. There is a bigger mindset that you already have inculcated in you. However, what you might also notice, if you were to take a moment and think about it, the spaces that you're actually good with are the spaces that has been integrated across your entire being, your body, your emotions, your deeper narratives, and the greater understanding of the whole picture. All these align together. When all these align together is when you're actually able to do what that sentence says, mind over matter. Yeah. But if these things are not aligned, and usually these things are not aligned, the misalignment of these pieces is what starts bringing in cracks. Cracks in the world within, and then whatever way I see things inside, I see things outside. And so when there are cracks here, there are cracks there. Okay. Now, what do we do? How do we bring this integration across our whole being, across body, emotions, deeper narrative, greater understanding? I'm going to just checking on time. Yeah, I'm going to share the framework of what are the things that are needed. And then I will also go to, okay, here are the 5 things that you can start off right now. Keeping in mind a few points. 1.5 hour of workshop, I can't teach you all of this. 2, my understanding and experience has been that you start small and you build consistency with that small. 3, as you start working with those 5 pieces, more things will begin to open up for you. Yeah, so I will share with you 5 quick things. They're kind of easy, simple things that you can do on a day-to-day basis. It can be integrated in your daily life. You don't have to like take out 30 minutes extra to do it. It's just something that you do as you live. Yeah. So we'll go into that. But before that, bear with me and try and for yourself, right? Bring in understanding for this framework. Here's the first bit. Mind over matter, yes. And the mind resides in this body. This body again is fantastic and also limited to this body. I can't go and live out somewhere else. My mind cannot go and live out somewhere else. It is very, very, very attached to this body, and literally and metaphorically speaking, it is very attached to the body. And so when I don't understand what's happening in this body, my mind is going to be in a constant state of flux, uncertainty. That's also where your inner doubts, confusion, lack of confidence, all of those pieces arise from that. Your mind feeling like it's in this flux, and the reason for that is because I don't actually understand what's happening in my body. Now, the simplest way to start with the body, this was also questions asked in the survey or the responses that you all filled, the basics: maintaining my sleep, maintaining a good diet, staying hydrated, some base level of movement. Yeah, you can call it exercise. Again, the core of exercise is not so much about losing weight, yes, staying healthy, but it's more nuanced than that. That's why I use the word movement, because movement is about flexibility of my body. Yeah, flexibility in my body, a certain amount of pressure to my heart rate. Yeah, so doing something that will cardio, things like cardio that bring up my heart rate, and then a certain amount of strength in my body. Those are the 3 things that are needed. You can do it through any movement based work. Then you are aware of it, and when you're consciously looking at it. Yeah, so one part of the body, understanding the body, is the basics. And this basics is also not, okay, people say 8 hours of sleep, okay, people say 8 glasses of water. What is it that works for me and my body? What is it that works for me and my body today? Tomorrow it might be different. And am I aware and conscious and present to my body to shift and move according to where my body is at this moment? So understanding at a nuanced level the basics, and then the subtle. Any time that there is a thought, along with the thought, there is an emotion. The thought and the emotion are intertwined. You cannot separate them. Every thought will have an emotion. Every emotion will bring up a thought. You may not be aware of one or the other, or at times both, but both exist together. And any time that this thought and emotion exist, they physically manifest in the body as a sensation. The mind very soon gets into its own circles and loops and circles and loops, and that gets complicated. And so it's easier to break the loops in the body by understanding sensations. And there are certain gross in the sense, like very explicit sensations that are easy to catch. So when I'm very angry, my face might turn red, hot, ears might, various things for various people. When I'm very anxious, my heart might be palpitating, my breath might be very shallow. Again, different things for different people with different emotions, with different thoughts that manifest in the body. And can I start understanding that? Can I start understanding what's happening in my body? And what is happening in my body is the truth of my body for this moment. It is not the truth or reality. Difference in that. Yeah. Okay, so that's one piece. Second, how do I begin increasing my emotional tolerance window, which doesn't mean that I tolerate crap, which means when emotions arise, how do I create space for both the pleasant and the unpleasant? Now, if not everybody here, at least some of you would have experienced that you're not able to fully feel the happiness and or joy and or be able to like fully celebrate something that you're happy about. Why is that? By the way, side note, related but side note, if you've not seen Inside Out, go watch it. Part 1, Part 2. Inside Out, it's an animated movie. It's beautifully sort of explains and shows how emotions work. If you suppress one, the other gets suppressed. So if I suppress sadness, anger, happiness and joy get suppressed, creativity gets suppressed. Yeah. So how do I learn to expand both the pleasant and the unpleasant emotion? Because even expanding the pleasant emotion is not always easy. Why? Because I have suppressed and are not fully allowed the unpleasant emotions to process through my body. Okay. So what are the skills that I need to develop? How do I develop these skills that my emotional tolerance goes up? Wherein when the emotion comes in, I can sort of create space. Okay. Third, at this is true for everybody. Okay, I'm going to take an exaggerated example of this. Some of you may know this as split personality. It's now in the DSM, it's called DID, dissociative identity disorder or not, but dissociative identities. And it becomes a clinical issue when one part of us is not aware of the other part of us, or one part of us is not aware of multiple other parts of us. Yeah, that's the extreme of it. But all of us have several parts within us. And I'm willing to bet money on this, saying that everybody here on this platform right now would have experienced, if not experiences on a continual basis, that there are times when I feel like there's a part of me that really wants this, but there's a part of me that really doesn't want or wants something else. And at times, again, if you've done self-reflection, you would realize there's a part of me that wants this, but a part of me wants that, and a part of me wants that. And I'm here to tell you that there are actually tens, if not hundreds of parts, if not hundreds and thousands of parts within each one of us. Each of these parts has its own story. Each of these parts are basically from the moment we were born. Imagine, let's for a moment sort of speak a little metaphorically here. Let's say you were this complete whole being. And then once you were born, there was a certain way that you were related to. Now, of course, it was not intended for you to fragment and or for you to get traumatized and or for you to have wounds or hurt. Nothing was intended. And there was a certain way on the way you were related, your being subconsciously, your inner world automatically started slicing away certain parts that were told to you are not good. Yeah? So fragmentation started happening. Similarly, certain parts were highlighted and you were told that this is the great part. This is great when you are this. And so those parts became drivers. A lot of people, a lot of functional people who do well at work have strong driving paths that were appreciated over a period of time. Yeah? And many of us believe that that's who I am, that this is me, I am this organized, structured, disciplined person. Let's say, for example, I'm not a very disciplined person. I've tried discipline for a long time, and then I realized actually true discipline is flow. Conversation for another time. But let's say you think you're this organized, structured, disciplined person. I'm willing to bet that's a part of you. And there are several other parts. And until I am willing to see, acknowledge, allow in, and accept each and every part of mine that's gotten fragmented from my being, there's gonna be some or the other chaos in my emotional mental space. Yeah? That brings us to the fourth piece. How do I learn how to heal? By allowing in, learning how to process the heavy, the unpleasant. And then very important step that a lot of spaces and people forget or are not aware of is how do I, after processing all of this heavy, unpleasant stuff, how do I release and let go? Very, very important. For all of those of you who, as a part of taking care of your mental and mental emotional health, you all engage in physical activity. That's a part of your release. You all engage with expression. That's a part of your release. So what a lot of functional people, day-to-day functionality, who are able to, hold a job, hold a relationship, etc. A lot of people who are functional on a day-to-day basis, what they tend to do is they feel whatever stress, unpleasant emotion, thought, and then they go release. They miss out the middle steps. And they're not aware that they're releasing. On the other side, the people who are aware that, okay, we need to allow it in and we need to process, then they forget to release. Yeah. So both these are important pieces. Neither should you jump from problem to release, nor should you just focus on solving and forget release. It's an entire process. And which finally brings us to the last bit of how do you integrate your whole being is going on your own journey as a seeker to find life's truths. Now, yes, you can read what other people who've gone on similar journeys have written. You can learn from other people. I am learning from other people all the time. And at the same time, each one of these other people found their truth. And the best ones will tell you, I have found my truth. I can show you the path I have walked. You need to walk it and find your truth. Thus, I say finding life's truths, because otherwise I could say, okay, go read this, go do that. There are a lot of resources, spaces that I can share. But at the core of it is, how do I explore and understand what is this life? Who am I? And I'm not any of these fragmented parts, by the way. Yeah. This is also where the psychology ties into spirituality. Spirituality, the word spiritual comes from the word espiritus. Espiritus means the soul or the self. So spirituality is not religious practices. Spirituality is the work of finding and understanding the self. Yeah. Who am I? And how is it that this life operates? Why do things happen the way they happen? Why do these things happen in my life? What is happening? Why are these things repeating? The bigger picture of it all. Yeah. And I'm going to relate this to your coaching, your being a teacher coach, if you're a teacher coach or whatever other coach you are in your field of coaching. The more you understand the bigger picture, the better you get at doing the smaller pieces. The more I have an understanding, I know where I'm walking, the easier it becomes to understand what my steps should be and how to take that step. Similarly, for your mental emotional well-being, understanding of life. All right, now we're going to move a little from this. We're going to go to the next piece that we are exploring. Before that, I want to check in and see. I haven't looked at the chats, but any of the hosts, if there is anything, any theme that's coming up that you'd want to share at this moment.
Yeah, there are some questions that have come up, and there is a request also to share a real life example for any one of the points.
So there are, could you, whoever the person is who's asked for a real life example, could you share in what, like, in what context? In what context do you want this real life example? You can also please feel free to unmute yourself and just ask.
Neetika, do you want to share?
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, ma'am, like whatever you're explaining, if you could just give some, a situation like as coaches, if you face like this, so how can we deal with it? I mean, because it was becoming too much of theoretical, and though we are trying to also relate with our own experiences, but I'll appreciate if we have some either a case study type of a thing or some example just to, have a basic understanding that okay, we are also on the same page.
Very okay. I'm also just saying this is high order thinking, especially like, yes, it is high order thinking, absolutely the theme, which is why I said this is the framework. Yeah. And we'll get to also, so what are here are the, for example, here are the 5 things that you can do. We can help people beyond our capacity, absolutely. To each his own, we have to understand our pain. Yes, yes, yes. No matter how genuine it may seem. We can only counsel and comfort us. Yes, 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 yes. All yes to all of that. Okay. Okay. So let me take up your question towards the end. Yeah. The reason I say that is because we're looking at the framework right now. What is the framework to, am I understanding the big picture? And I hear your question. And I'm also aware that this question comes up from this sort of space and life that we are all in this world, which is I want it fixed, I want it resolved yesterday. Yeah. But what we seem unable and or many times unwilling to do is, can I actually understand what's happening? Because if I don't understand what's happening, then I can keep doing quick fix solutions. And yes, in the moment, the quick fix will help. So I can give you a case study. Let's say I talk about one of my clients, right? I can talk about a client and I can say, hey, this is where this person was. This is what we did. This is what happened. This is what she started shifting. And then this is what the outcome was. Yeah, I can definitely say that. But the reason her outcome was what it was, the reason I was able to take her from where she was to her outcome was because I had done some work within me. Yeah. Unless I do this work with myself, I cannot reach the other. Which is why I said our core assumption here for this workshop is I can take the other only as deep as I have gone within me, not an inch more, not an inch less. And the last chat that I read, which said, we cannot make anybody do anything. Absolutely. Right. And at the same time, what is my dharma? What is my sort of bigger purpose, bigger why in this world? My purpose is not to make somebody change. And this, I'll personally talk for myself. Purpose is not to make any of you change or believe or do something. My purpose is to grow, continually grow and evolve, and in the best of my capacity, hold space where others are welcome to join in and see for themselves. That is the best I can do. And so one sort of limitation that I will call out here in the space of coaching, if you're a coach like me, to whom people come, so people come to me to be guided and coached by me, you are in the space of luxury in terms of coaching, if that's who you are, if that's the kind of work that you do. If you are in an organization where there is a coach, assigned coach, and an assigned coachee, and there isn't much flexibility, the coachee has to have a coach, and the coach has to coach his coachee, there are a little limitations to that. Yeah. Again, here, this workshop is for you to focus on you. You show up as the best you, and that's it. Which doesn't mean you don't have accountability, which doesn't mean you don't take responsibility, but you begin to understand where your accountability and responsibility lie, which was also a question of locus of control. Okay, I'm going to quickly check in on these chats. Nirvana Kyatam really helps align with self. I would say you listen to whatever soothes you and allow that listening, reading, whatever you're reading, listening, allow that to be experienced and then find your own truth in it. Yeah. Don't follow things blindly. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on. Now, how do we use coaching as a fertile ground for our deeper inner work? This is true for any space that you will be a part of. I'm picking up coaching because my assumption is that this is your day job. And so you're probably spending a good chunk of your waking life engaging in this work. If that is true, can you stay with the sentence that the other is nothing but a mirror for me to access things that I'm unable to see just by myself? How? All of these pieces that I've said. Maybe now, Nitika, here your example may also come. Yeah. So I'm sitting across a coachee. Yeah. And this coachee is sitting like this. Yeah. Hands folded, is sort of not meeting my gaze. And whatever I say is like, yeah, sure. And so that's the kind of attitude that this coachee has. What happens in my body? How do I feel when I notice this coachee do this? Do I get angry, annoyed? Do I feel like, oh my God, this person is just like this? Do I feel like, yeah, fine, whatever, if that's where you are, I will also just be there? What comes up for you? Starting with your body, sensations. What emotions follow those sensations? And how do I hold those emotions? Am I able to stay with if the coachee is celebrating something, am I able to celebrate as fully with them? Or am I like, okay, good, that's good, but let's focus on this? Or am I like, when the coachee is really upset, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want this, I don't want this. How am I with my emotions when the coachee is presenting something? Based on how I feel, how I respond and react to the person in front of me, can I start noticing, where is this coming from? What are these narratives? What are these parts? What are these different parts saying? This one part saying, okay, I have to be here. So in my case, Shobhali, you have to be here. Shobhali, you have to be here. This other part saying, oh my God, Shobhali, this person is gone case. Let this person be. Another part being like, oh my God, this person has so much attitude. What the hell? I'm going to teach this person a lesson. Or I'm going to show this person who the boss is. Again, I'm sort of giving exaggerated inner dialogues. And at the same time, these are not exaggerated inner dialogues. If you were to actually sit and allow your truth to come in front of you, the truth can seem ugly. The reason I say it seems ugly is because we've been told all of these things are bad, not good, don't be like this. Yeah. When I choose to be a certain way, that's beautiful. But when I'm told to be a certain way, even if that way is good, it creates fragmentations and cracks. Yeah. And so can I start bringing all of me back to me and then choose? Okay. Similarly, as I start seeing these fragmented parts, then I have the space to allow these fragmented parts work with the processing. Let's say this part in me gets very, very riled up. That's like, this person is talking like this to me. This person should be respecting me. This person should have, I'm doing so much for this person. This person should at least acknowledge that I have been supporting this person throughout. Okay, what is this part that's gotten activated in me? Where is this part coming from? Is this part coming from the space that growing up, I was never actually told that you matter and you're so important. I was always told how I should be doing better, 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 better. I was never actually acknowledged for the things that I was doing well. Maybe that's where this part comes from. Maybe. And as we move on, you'll also see a very important piece of this work is building curiosity to actually be ready to say, I haven't concluded. This is my ongoing exploration. And then as I start asking the top 4 questions, as I start engaging with the top 4 questions, the fifth emerges. And this you have to experience. You cannot, there is no way to jump. When we jump, a quick side note, psychology and our therapy and our therapeutic spaces are working on helping you move from an unhealthy sense of self to a healthy sense of self. An unhealthy sense of self is any self that feels it is, that either exaggerates itself or degrades itself. So if I think too much of myself, that is an issue. If I think too little of myself, that is an issue. A healthy self is a self that is able to see as is, without feeling pulled and pushed in who I should be, who I shouldn't be. I'm able to see myself as I am and continually work towards a better version of me. That's a healthy sense of self. Spirituality from there goes on to help us see and understand the idea and concept of selflessness, which is not the concept of this, which is not going to be a part of this workshop today. And I can almost say it with a certain amount of guarantee that selflessness is not really what you think the word means. But let this be a journey. Let that space and place open up and emerge as you engage with the first 4. The fifth is going to start emerging. Your mind, your being will automatically open up to understand the deeper reality, the deeper truths. So when I say coaching is a fertile ground for your deeper inner work, this is what I mean, that all of these pieces that you need to do for yourself, you can sit across this other person and do in real life. But how do we do it? How do we cultivate the right inner world? And what is this right inner world? We can have a discussion about this and talk about, okay, what is the right inner world? What is the right inner world? If I were to make an informed guess, this is what I would say most people might agree with. If I have this sort of inner grounded stability, in Hindi the word would be therav, a pause, but not a pause of nothing. The ability to pause in this moment here, neither being pulled into the future nor being pushed into the past. The ability to pause right here in this present moment so I can live the present moment to moment to moment, that only comes from a space of inner grounded stability. Once this inner grounded stability is there, or as much of this inner grounded stability is there, automatically there is this base level of eternal joy that emerges. And the reason I call it eternal is because this base level of joy doesn't get affected by what's happening in life. This doesn't mean you become, oh, everything is good. Of course, you still experience emotions, you'll still experience anger, you'll still feel upset, you'll still feel sad, you'll feel and go through, experience different emotions. That's a part of being human, that's a part of our evolution, to go through, process, understand. And there will just be this sense of eternal joy that is just there with, for no reason, no event, that automatically happens on this inner grounded stability. And when these two happen, automatically what emerges is, I want to continually grow and I want to continually give and or contribute in whatever way, form, and shape that is most aligned with me from that space. Okay, I'm going to quickly check in on the chats just to sort of get a sense of what's happening here. Places don't allow us to live in the present because schedules are scattered. Yes. Completely agree with this, right? And again, this is where your locus of control piece will come, and this locus of control will become, it will either take you to a space of saying, okay, this is all I can control right now, and I need to be here in this workspace. There is no other alternative for me. All right, there will be this limitation, and I will, in my inner space, I can try my best to be my best inner space. Yeah, and that's my limitation. And then there might come a time where you will be in a space and place where you will say, yeah, I'm actually good to let go of this workspace. There will come a time, right? And when it comes, how it comes, that's very, very emerging and folding for each and every one of us. All right, correct, true, Okay. Anyone or any thoughts around, would there be anything beyond these three pieces for the right inner world for me? So Maya, I agree, I sort of agree and not fully agree, and I'll tell you why. Yes, it's important to do that. However, if I'm forcing myself into it, then I'm doing the exact same thing that has been done to me over and over and over again, right? Which is, I've been told, oh, this is how I should be and this is how I should not be. And so can I let the shoulds and should nots go for a bit and actually check in with my current reality and then move from there? External confirmations which reinforce connecting our own faith. It's uplifting. Yep. Conscious is important. And conscience, Hasina. When you're in that space and state, the conscience is clear. Interconnectedness of the whole world. Yes. And as the deeper I understand myself and my truth and my realities, the more I see the world, because the world is nothing but how I see it. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna come to now. What do I do? What do I do to sort of have this kind of right inner world? This is the framework, as I've already discussed. This is the framework that, whether you follow today or not, at some point in time, and you probably already do bits and pieces of this, and that's the other reason why there is so much chaos in the world today, because people are doing bits and pieces, seeing a little bit here, seeing a little bit there, but nothing is making full sense because we are not willing to pause and see the whole picture, try to make sense of what is it that's really happening. Yeah, and even like the specializations are great, but specialization without understanding the whole picture leaves us nowhere. And so we'll focus on sleep, or we'll focus on food, or we'll focus on this or that. Even the mind and body has gotten so separated, right? So this will be the framework. You're already probably doing some or the other things across the framework. What I'm telling you is that unless you get the whole picture, it's gonna be hard. And now here are the top 5 things, or the first 5 things that you can start for this. And these are very simple. These are things that you can just incorporate in your life, in your day-to-day. And what I'm gonna invite you into doing is, for let's say the next 5 to 10 minutes, maybe stop engaging with the chat and move into yourself. Yeah. So if possible, if you can, do not put anything in the chat, do not read the chat, come home to you. Breath, prana, chi, life energy. The difference between life and death, literally. Life begins the moment the first breath comes in, and life goes, and our death happens when the last breath goes. Yeah. And so breath, and there's also almost every tradition has a focus on breath. There's a reason behind it. If in this moment, if you allow yourself to take a deep breath, and this deep breath, let this breath go to your belly, expanding your belly, slowly expanding, 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 and then hold and listen to my instruction for the out breath. So when you breathe out, you're going to release from the mouth, and you're going to release as slowly as possible, as comfortable, and with a sigh. So you're going to let out a sound. We'll do it one more time, and this time you'll also flow with the body. So if you see me, when I take the breath in, I flow with my body. See, my body expands when I breathe in. In day-to-day, we don't allow this to happen. So I expand with my body, and when I breathe out, whoo, I go back with my body. Now, those of you who tried this right now would have experienced the sort of release, relax, and just a momentary sort of thera. The more you bring this kind of breath in your body, it's doing two things. One, it is calming your entire nervous system. Now, I don't know if any of you are aware of the whole research that's been going about the central nervous system, and how the nervous system needs to be worked with to be able to calm anxiety, to be able to calm stress, all of those things. The easiest, simplest, quickest method to calm and ground and get stable is the breath. And nothing hard, nothing complicated, just this breath. Allow full expansion, going up, going out with the body. Whew, dropping in with the body. With the sound, with the sigh is important. If you can bring in this breath, 3 breaths at a time, similar, across the day, at least 3 times. If it helps, take it as medicine. Morning, wake up, 3 breaths. Afternoon, after lunch, 3 breaths. Evening, before sleep, 3 breaths. If that helps, that's great. If not, create your own structure with breath. Very, very important. Very, very simple. You do it every day. Second, every moment, can I start seeing body, mind, and me? Let's say I feel frustrated. Okay, let's say I'm feeling frustrated, and my inner dialogue is, oh my God, this is so frustrating. And when I'm saying that or thinking that, my body is closing up, clamping up. That is just what happens with almost every unpleasant emotion. It'll either cramp up, or it'll get very fast hyper. It'll either go in hyper state, and or it may go into hypo state, where it just sort of collapses. Yeah. Now, when this thought of frustration comes in, can I take a moment, maybe even close my eyes, and maybe you can do that right now, right? And bring in any sort of emotion you want, or you can play around with frustration and just let that sort of embody in you. How does that feel when you're frustrated? Yeah, you might notice my brows sort of clenching up. The upper body clenches up, maybe even like the pelvic floor clenches up. Notice that. And then take a breath, creating space, letting go. And now can I see to myself, okay, this is happening in my body. And now change that inner sentence from I am frustrated to my mind feels frustrated. I am the one who's observing my body and mind. And so in other words, I'm teaching you observation. How do you observe yourself? With the simple three-piece process. Body, what's happening in the body, notice, acknowledge. Oh, this is happening in my body, okay. Oh, this is what's happening in my mind, okay. Oh, and I am neither my body nor my mind. This is my body, this is my mind. I am neither of them. I am the observer. In research, they say the observer changes the observed. And so over a longer period of time, if you do nothing else, if you just work with the breath and build this observer you, your life will transform. I can give it to you in writing, provided you do it. Next thing that you can start doing again right away. when the thought comes, okay, Shobhali, no, don't feel like that. Shobhali, stop feeling that. Shobhali, don't think like that. Can I actually stop and say, oh, there's a part of me that feels this. Huh. Oh, I see. I see this feels really frustrating. I see that this part is really hurt. I see you. And not don't think like that, don't feel like that, think like this, feel like that. Yeah. So can I start accepting bringing in all of me? Again, this is something you can do on a day-to-day basis. I can guarantee you, once you start seeing, observing, you will start noticing that there are so many chances for us to do this. Fourth piece that I think will be truly beneficial for anybody would be silence in nothing. So choosing to do nothing and staying quiet and just seeing what comes up. This is going to be in the exploratory curiosity generating space. Yeah. What comes up as I'm just doing nothing? Just sort of seeing what comes up. And random thought. And at times, again, depending on your level of what your skill and capacity already is of observation and all of these things, you might notice very silly thoughts just keep popping up, or so to say silly. Oh, this lamp is this colored. And when there is nothing to think about, your mind will still catch something to think about. Yeah? Notice that. And as you start noticing that, you might start noticing the nature of this mind. Some of you may have heard the term monkey mind. This is just its nature. What I start doing is I start reacting to this monkey mind. The monkey mind jumps there, I jump with it. Then it jumps here, I jump with it. Can I start building the practice of noticing this monkey mind's nature? Knowing that I'm not this mind, yes, this is my mind. And yes, unconsciously, I have fed it with certain traits and skills that has become so monkey-like. Can I now start differentiating between me and this mind? Yeah. And then finally, the basics. This is something that when I work with somebody, this is where I start with everybody. The person that I work with, I start with them here. The more that I can associate and or get back to nature. What are the elements in nature? There is heat, sun, enough sun. There is air, enough oxygen, breathing, going to green spaces. There is earth, walking on earth, being connected to earth. What kind of food am I eating? There is flow and water, hydration. Yeah? So the basic elements. And then there is space. Different traditions will say 4 elements or 5 elements, and even the ones that say 4 elements, then they say the 5th is ether. It's not really an element, but it's basically space. Without ether, without space, nothing would exist because everything would collapse. Yeah. And so do I have space in here, in my space around? And if I don't have it, when you were a child, you had minimal or zero agency. You're not a child anymore. You can create space. And it's an illusion. We keep deluding ourselves saying, oh, I can't or I don't have. Most of the things here, needed here, you do have access to, you can. Yeah? It's a deluded experience that, oh, I don't have, I can't have. And we can talk more about it. And then sleep, rest is very important for recuperation of the body. Nothing else will work if I'm not giving enough time, energy to recuperate, also part of the space element. Movement, we've spoken about exercise, again, very important for processing, releasing, and a piece that I feel we forget. I, for the longest time in my life, did not have a lot of access to this piece. Lightness, humor, especially in this work, especially in the deep inner work, because this work is heavy at so many points in time. If I don't bring in some lightness, I'll drown in the heaviness. Yeah. And so if you were to now think about this whole workshop, I'm smiling so much. This is something that I've taught myself. Yeah, this was not my natural. I wasn't like when I was growing up and or as a young adult. This was not my natural self. This is something that I had to teach myself over years. Bringing in expansiveness, space, lightness, humor, no matter how serious things are. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna once again quickly check in before we move into the Q&A from here. Hosts, any theme, any specific thing coming up, or we can move, or should we just move into the Q&A piece?
Yeah, we can move into the Q&A.
All right. Last piece. Sorry. How do I bring my best self forward? And this is not just with the coachee, but hopefully, this is my assumption and my belief. I believe that every human is doing the best that they can at every given moment. There is no other way to live life. And I'll tell you why. So let me actually bring this whole thing out. The reason we cannot not be our best selves at every given moment is because by nature, by the virtue of being living beings, we are selfish. What does that mean? Again, this word selfish is not a moral thing. Selfish means thinking about the self. The only purpose of a living being is to continue living. Notice how I'm saying living being, not human being. As a human being, we are also living beings. And so, by the virtue of being a living being, we are selfish. We do think about ourselves. Yeah. And if we are selfish, if we think about ourselves, if we think about our best interest, we will automatically do what we think is the best thing to do, best way to be in any and every given moment. Because I am selfish, I think about myself. And so a teacher of mine says, be kind to yourself, be wisely kind to yourself, understanding that, yeah, selfishness is nature. In a lot of other spaces, they say, don't be selfish. Here, the teaching is be selfish, be wisely selfish. Yeah. And so, by understanding these pieces, that, oh, I and the other, which is the next point, are exactly the same. We're all wanting exactly the same. Every person wants the same in a world. Stability, safety, joy, connection, meaning. Everybody wants the same thing. You as well as your coachee, you as well as your partner, you as well as your child, you as well as your parent. Everybody wants the same thing, exactly the same thing. How can I build that for me? Because only what I build in me can I pass on, will flow out from me. Yeah. The first two pieces of this, how do I bring my best self forward, is one, and this is very hard. I know it is very hard for me. Continual adoption of the view of world that anything that's happening, what the other person is saying, even if the other person is abusing me, even if the other person is putting me down, no matter what the other person is doing, no matter what the event is, it's not about me. It is giving me a lot of information to do my inner work, to see what's stuck where. It's giving me a lot of information, and it's not about me. It's not personal. Yeah? The second piece is what I was mentioning a little while back, bringing in how do I hone my capacity to be curious. And one simple activity to do is silence in nothing. The other activity that you can do is walking along the road, pick up a random leaf, stone, stick, whatever. And can I start looking at it in a very nuanced way, as if I'm looking at this for the first time? These are things that we need to actively do to cultivate. Why? Because our schooling system is such that it sort of takes away any and all natural curiosity. And so we need to rebuild it. Yeah. Okay. I think I'll stop here and move or open up to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Shobhali. I think before we open the floor to questions, we have collated some questions which you had while ma'am was sharing. And I think I would like to ask those first, and then we can take up other questions. So some of them ask that about the burden of knowledge. So it sometimes feels overwhelming, especially if we have coaching people who are close to us. They are being hurt and we want to coach them, but they don't believe in coaching or simply doing any inner work. So how can one best help them, or even just accept that we can't help them?
By just doing that. by understanding that I cannot help anybody. I can open myself up in space for people who want support. Yeah, people who want to learn will come to me to learn if that's the space that I'm opening up. But I can't make anyone learn. I can't help anybody. I can guide people who want to be guided. I can coach people who want to be coached. Try to understand that this need to, oh, I want to coach this person, whatever, my family member, etc. This need to coach that person is coming from your need of not being able to accept that person where that person is, and not being able to work with your own unpleasant emotions that come up when this person doesn't show up the way you want this person to show up. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question. Um, the next question is, how does recognizing parts of yourself in others influence your interactions and relationships?
First and foremost, it shifts the way you see yourself. Yeah. If you're doing parts work the right way, and the right way to do parts work is with curiosity, openness, allowing in, and noticing how you feel towards various parts. Some parts you might feel like, oh, I really like this part, like this is who I want to be all the time, and some parts you feel like, oh, I don't like this part, I don't like that part. And as you start engaging this part work, very soon you'll start realizing that this me who's speaking is also a part. This is one of the main drivers of my life. Yeah? And that's when you start going into the idea, which is actually not a concept, it is a non-conceptual thing, the sense of selflessness, and yet not being nothing. You are not nothing, and you are also not who you think you are. Yeah? And that in there is where our exploration lies, to more to the point of now, how does this change our interaction with others? The more I start understanding what parts of me are in conflict in a certain relationship, the more I can sort of have a conversation with those parts and say, okay, what are you needing here? Oh, you're feeling unsafe here. Oh, okay. Oh, you're feeling unheard here. Oh, okay. Okay. Let me present that to this other person. Yeah? So you can take hold of you, your truth, stand on it comfortably, and share from that space.
Thank you so much for answering that. Now I open the floor to any more questions. If anyone has any questions, they can come off mute and ask. Yes, I think, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So um, all of this is kind of a lot of work that I've already begun in therapy in form of mentorship, etc. And a lot of what you've said is already out there in front of me in post-its right now. What I think a challenge that I'm sure others are also facing is this like the responsibility feels unbearable, and not just of yourself when you are responsible for a team, for others, that the that kind of is so heavy that in that moment to take the driver's seat and push yourself um, to make things lighter, to find solace in humor, or whatever coping you want to do, that feels so challenging that then the grounding goes away, because then identity is questioned. You're not able to separate who you are and what you do. um like, am I making sense? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
That is my then question basically, that how do I get out of this loop of maybe what I would call as self-victimization, and being comfortable there, and really take on that driver's seat and be an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to invite a lot of self-compassion and grace. I think I forgot to mention this was on the slide, but I don't think I spoke about it. This work needs a lot of grace to the self. Your name is showing as M, so I'm going to call you M. Is that okay? Okay. So M, if what's working for you, then continue doing that. But if it's not working, and from what you're sharing, it's not working, yeah, check in with yourself. What's the resistance to try the different path? Because there is a resistance. There's almost like, oh, but how can I do all of that and leave this? And it's also the sort of deeper belief system that almost all people have, who are very, very strongly attached to a certain way of looking at life, a certain narration that they have for themselves, is this sort of, if I let go of this, then who do I be? And or if I let go of this, do I go into my shadow self? Into the negative space of the shadow self? Either that's the fear, or that I will become not as important. And that sort of becomes then my driving question, like, yes, I'm responsible for my team. And this is an interdependent space, not just me and my team. My entire life, the entire world is an interdependent space. Yeah? And as you're saying that you're doing therapy, you're working with other mentors, you're already doing a lot of this work, then I'm going to invite you to step into certain higher practices around interdependence. One is to understand here, oh yes, of course I understand everything is interdependent. The other is to feel in your being the interdependence. Anytime that the balance is this side or that side, I am responsible. Of course, I've taken away from myself, but I've also taken away from everybody else. Yeah. And so even from that point of view, if I'm saying that I really want the best for my team, is owning everything the best for my team. Right? If that's what works for you. So there's this concept of everybody knows the Buddha, right? But people know the Buddha. It's actually a Buddha. A Buddha is anybody who has reached a state where they can see all perspectives. And that's sort of the space that we want to move towards. How can I sort of broaden my horizon of seeing and understanding and not just knowing? So all the post-its on your wall are great. How much of integration is that in my being and in my living? Yeah. And so that's where I would start with. The integration of my being with what's on my post-it. Can you read one of the things on your post-it if you're willing to?
Check if my decision is coming out of anger or any other strong emotion and change it if needed.
What do you do then once you've read this? How do you check?
What this came out of was that I gave into a moment of extreme anger and frustration and made an emotional decision, which resulted into something not positive for the organization. So how I would imagine this as manifesting is that I check in and like see what the feeling is and then make a decision.
Okay. I'm going to say two things here, huh? From what you've shared just now, it seems that you haven't yet tried doing it. And this is not just UM. Everybody, like, we have things, okay, I'll do this, but how much do we really go back and do it? One. Two, what I'm gonna invite you into whenever you want to try this is what do you say? Anger or
any other emotion? Anger
or any other emotion, right? And from this sort of concept that you've shared, it seems like, okay, it's a mental work. Okay, is this anger? Is this something else? Okay, if I let go of anger, if I let go of the emotion, okay, now what will I do? All in the mind. Can't operate like that beyond a point. Mindset work is great. I always tell people, mindset work is great. But mindset work is incomplete if your whole being is not with it. And so if there is anger, I can't shut it. I can suppress it. But when I suppress it, it manifests in things like you're probably experiencing sort of frustration, passive aggression. And so if I'm not doing the body work, if I'm not doing the emotions processing work, just the mindset work will not help.
Yeah.
And I can promise you, M, if you were to start just with those 5 things that I said, you would see a shift in about 2 to 3 weeks if you were to do it consistently. I can promise you that. And if it doesn't shift, email me.
Okay.
But you have to do it consistently. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Any other, maybe one question, and then I want to quickly share something else, just a way to sort of opening for you, for any of you who wants to go deeper into this work.
Shobhali, there was one question regarding, are you suggesting that an inner locus will enable change in coaches?
Am I suggesting that an inner locus, that inner locus will shift the game for anybody and everybody, not just coaches. It just becomes more important for us because we are so closely holding another person's inner world, whether or not we are aware of it. Yeah. Our work as coaches is to try and be able to see the other person's inner world. Now, the best way to see the other person's inner world is based on what they are telling me, because I can't actually go there. The second best way is to understand myself deeper, because most people don't go into their inner worlds. And the more I start understanding myself, the better informed guesses I can make about what's happening in them. Thus, yes, the locus within me will be a game shifter for everybody, especially for people who are doing work like this, coaching, therapy, guidance, because you're working with another person's inner world. Okay, so I'm going to quickly share an offer that I have for everybody who's here. I'm going to check in. Is my screen showing? Yes? No? Does my screen show for you? Okay, perfect. So the program is called Rooted in Chaos. All of these things that I've mentioned and what I was also talking to about with M, the body work, the emotions-based work, unless that happens, the whole processing hasn't happened. If the whole processing hasn't happened, the mind itself, the mind over matter is not just going to happen like that. This work needs to happen. And the program Rooted in Chaos is, do you see the shift in my screen? It's called, do you see course curriculum there now? No? Okay. Let me then. All right. You should now see course curriculum. Yeah. Okay. So this is the curriculum. This is sort of the program that I created over all of my experienced years, so over about 12 plus years now. And specifically deep diving into it in the last 2 years, specifically with self-reflective, action-oriented women who are good at what they do and they want to figure out their mental, emotional, relational pieces. Yeah. So this was specifically designed for those women. It goes through in depth, in details about how do you understand, how do you practice body and mind acceleration pieces. These are again pieces, simple small little techniques that you build on day after day into your current being, understanding how to respond, how to respond to your defense mechanisms, build resilience, emotional resilience, what to do with emotions, the whole span of emotions from anxieties, fears to joy, contentment, becoming aware of the various layers of your current reality, right? And this is where we also bring in intergenerational work. What are the burdens? What are the gifts? What are we doing right now? And how do we start bringing in tiny little changes right away that then takes us into deeper work of the fragmented hurt parts, learning how to heal them, hold them, heal them, reintegrate ourselves, looking at, as you start looking at these different parts, you can then start seeing what various relationships, right from child-parent relationship to maybe romantic relationships, friendships, how they have impacted you, how they have resulted in how you see the world right now. How do you start sort of working with that? That's once we do all of that work, we are then in a good place to now start sorting out our narratives across all aspects of our life. We cover 5 important: love, money, work, worth, life. How do you start creating more helpful, more effective beliefs? And then we dive deeper into the subtle wisdom, the ancient wisdom coming from Yoga Vidya, Tantra Vidya, pieces like that. Again, both Yoga, Tantra are based in India, and apparently they say Tantra is a mother lineage passed down from woman to woman to woman over many centuries of patriarchy. It's just you don't see it much, but Tantra is a women-based practice. And so living samsara is nirvana. How do you actually make that happen? Yeah. Then we sort of wrap it up by saying, okay, let's make the shift and change right away, right now. Yeah. It's a 10-week module. I have stopped saying 10 weeks. I say 10 modules because different people take different time, different pace that they work with. It has more than 100 resources, videos, audio, mostly videos and audio, and then whatever reading material, etc. But this is resourceful, resource packed, and the idea here was when I began creating this course, rooted in chaos. The idea was that it should help and benefit anybody who wants to understand their mind at its deepest levels, build emotional resilience, relational wisdom, heal unhealthy patterns, all while knowing how to be anchored in themselves with deep inner clarity and alignment. Yeah. So that's sort of the focus of this program, teaching you how to become your own inner guide. M was sharing how he's done some work with therapy, with a mentor-mentee relationship, and nobody really can ever see your inner world. Nobody will ever be able to see your inner world the way you will be able to, which is also why after a certain point in time, therapy doesn't work, coach doesn't work, mentor doesn't work, because they can only do so much. What they can do is limited to 2 things. 1, their own inner world. 2, how much they can see of your inner world. Yeah. And so I have realized from my experience with myself, with others, that the best way is to learn your own best therapeutic skills, best coaching skills, best spiritual skills to be able to slowly but continually become your own inner guide. Not saying don't take support from others. Sure, take it. I'm always taking it. And building this skill, I feel, is like learning ABC, building ABC so that your life flows like a beautiful book. Yeah. This course, when I started with it, I would do it either in small groups or one-on-ones, and people have paid up to $3,500 USD, $3,500 for this course. When I started, I wasn't sure, or I wasn't yet confident to sort of open up this space. The reason being, I hadn't seen enough evidence. But now the site that has been shared with you, if you go to that site, go to the testimonials, you'll see several testimonials, and I feel confident now that anybody who chooses to walk this path can walk this by themselves. And so this year, my mission has been to support 100,000 women in their own inner work journeys, and I've opened this entire curriculum up with direct team support with me at $37. And for those who are here right now, there is a further discount for you, which will last only, so I'm in the US, this will last till midnight today. So for India, it will be till 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. If you use the code Firki in caps, FIRKI, you get a further $10 discount. So the course will be at about $27, which will be around 2,200 INR. Yeah. Once that space opens up, then more space opens up for people who want to further dive deeper. There are, again, very, very heavily discounted group spaces, one-on-one spaces, all of those spaces open up. And I only work with people who are a part of Rooted in Chaos because I have seen a number of people walk it. And I know that if you're serious about your inner work, you need to be walking this path. Yeah. I'm gonna stop my share with that. I will just share the link once to the program, and I'll also put in the code for those of you who may want it. Right, here's the here is the link, and this is the code, just Firki in capital letters. Seems like a wonderful person. Thank you so much, Ajay. All right. I know we are about 16 minutes up. Hosts, I leave it up to you. What do you want to do? Do we close out? I'm also happy to stay back if anybody has any question.
Yeah, I think thank you, Shobhali, for taking us through the ABCD of our inner work as coaches. So I think we can wrap up the call since we have already been late. If you guys have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us over email. The email ID would be pasted shortly in the chat box. We have already pasted as well. Um, and yes, like we would like to thank Shabali for being so generous with the time and expertise. I would also like to thank our audience for joining us today, and we hope that you found value in attending this session. Also, before you leave, please take a minute to give us feedback on your learning experience with our workshop today. This helps us grow and improve our resources for you. Also, once you fill the feedback form, you will receive the attendance certificate on your registered email ID. You may watch the video link which we have sent on the chat box to understand how to access the feedback form and webinar and the workshop certificate through our website. Also, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter for regular updates. And thank you for joining us this evening and engaging during the session. We hope that you found this valuable. Before you leave, a gentle reminder to fill your feedback form because only then you will be able to have the certificate. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to send them to programs@firki.co.